Right. Well, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of We Got Balls. And Scott, recently we did an episode, Am I a Sex Addict? We talked about the reality of sex addiction, what it is, how it forms, how we can identify that. And today, what do I do if I'm a sex addict? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I don't really know how all those things work together. But if I feel like I've got a struggle, where do I go with that? And what would be, give me in 3 words, give me the answer to the question, what do I do if I'm a sex addict, Scott?
Okay, the first answer is get rid of that fucking label.
All righty, we're already over our words. We'll have to time out. So if you think you struggle, stick around. We'll be right back. Well, hey guys, we're going to talk today about what do we do if we think we're struggling with sexual issues, compulsive sexuality, unwanted sexual behavior, all those things. If you're struggling there, we're going to give you plenty more words than just 3. There are no quick fixes to answer this question, but we do want to sit with you and give you some perspective from our own journey and walking with other men of what we can do, what you can do to begin to understand how you got to where you are and how you can heal, how you can change, how you can grow away from depending on sex and orgasm and porn and hooking up to regulate your emotions. If you haven't checked out our previous episode around Am I a Sex Addict? We really highly encourage you to go back to that first and maybe take some of the assessments in the show notes and listen to our conversation, because we want you to feel comfortable with the opportunity to be known and seen, because the enemy, Scott, and you know this, the enemy of this conversation is shame. We want to do everything we can to take shame out of the equation, out of your embodied experience, out of your relational dynamic, and to help you feel seen, known, and loved and accepted just as you are. There's nothing wrong with you, but the things in your life are causing a lot of chaos. So when a guy comes to you and says, I don't know what to do, Scott, I think I'm struggling with this stuff, what's the first thing you point him towards?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is try to help him understand how he developed, what's his formation in his family like. And again, just to reinforce, a lot of what we're talking about comes from this excellent book by Alexandra Kathakis. We'll put that in the show notes, a link to Amazon. Sex Addiction is Affect Dysregulation. I'm a big lover of the model that she developed, which combines some kind of top-down and then bottom-up work, which we do as well. And so she just gave a really nice model for how to do this in a therapeutic package. But the first thing is really understand. So just to summarize where we were in the last episode, all addictive ways come out of a lack of secure attachment in our early developmental relationships with mom and dad. In a way, you can look at it like this: is your relationship with your mother is the first love relationship of your life. And it sets the model for what all future relationships will be like. So you've got to start with being curious about, what was it like growing up in my home with my relationship with my mom and dad? And so we talked about kind of how affect regulation comes out, the ability to regulate your emotions comes out of your relationship with your mother first and then your dad. And when you say that we feel a lot of shame around sexual addiction, well, the interesting thing is, according to Alexandra, and I agree with her, shame is the cause of sexual addiction.
Yeah.
And it goes back to these early formative experiences with parents where a lot of shame, which is a very intense, unpleasant emotion, is used to control us as, toddlers, infants. And what that does in our neurobiology in creating a shutdown, collapsed effect that puts us in this zone of feeling like we're bad and we're worthless and we will not be enjoyed. And that's very, very young in our lives. And so that's part of her model.
So by young, I want to just say that doesn't mean immature, right? That just means I'm stuck in a place in my development that I never was able to truly move past. And so they have a lot of the emotional relational mental dynamics of that age that are still kind of coming up for me.
That's right.
Right? Okay.
Right. Exactly right. So she would say that sexual addiction is both the cause and the effect of these early attachment affect wounds that develop. And so her treatment model involves, she conceives of sexual addiction as a braiding of three brain systems. The top of the brain, the cortical part of the brain where we have our what's called executive functions. This would be impulse control, gets damaged by the early attachment wounds.
That's where the habits live. That's where, is it where my behavioral cortex is?
That's behavior, right? That's behavior management. Should, shouldn't, no, I can't do this. No, I'm going to control that impulse. That's at the top of the brain. The middle of the brain is the limbic brain or the emotional brain. That's where we name emotions, we get images, we have bodily sensations that are related to emotions. And then the very bottom of the brain is the brainstem, and sexual addiction there affects the seeking circuit, which becomes eternally frustrated. And I'm always seeking sexual connection as a way to regulate my emotions. And so all three of those areas need to be repaired if you're going to heal from sexually compulsive behavior or unwanted sexual behavior.
I'm just curious, as you describe those, it seems like those parts of the brain develop at different stages of life. Is that true?
That is absolutely true.
Okay. So if you're having a seeking desire, then you're perpetually moving into pursuit and wanting something, that's a very young, almost pre-conscious season of life where you're like, I'm looking for nurture, I'm looking for attachment, I'm looking for care. And the emotional piece is probably more in the childhood to early childhood, elementary school years. And the executive function may be a little later, or can those be associated like that?
No, they can. You're a little late in some of those periods. So the brain stem is actually, it's formed in utero. It's part of, it controls all the autonomic functions of our bodies, your respiration rate, your body temperature, does hunger, thirst, sexual longing comes out of that, that craving, the desire for touch and all of that. So the primary attachment circuits are in the brainstem because a baby is born longing for connection, right? A baby can scan her mother's face and recognize her voice within minutes after coming out of the womb. And all that's coming from the brainstem. In the first 2 years of life, then, the right hemisphere of the brain is accelerating and developing at an accelerated rate. And then after that, the top of the brain starts to come online. Around 4 to 5 is where it starts maturing to the point where we start to have narrative memory because our language capabilities are matured to that point where we have language. So the role of mom and dad—
first 8 years of life, really, that we're talking about, right?
Definitely first 8 years of life. Sexual arousal templates form between 5 and 8. So you're already starting to have your arousal template formed, but it's coming out of your formative relationships with first your mom, who's kind of the first love, and then your dad. Moms love differently than dads. Moms give a lot of nurture, stroking, sucking, eye gaze, vocal. It's all nonverbal communication in those first 2 years of life. Dads come along within that period, but dads actually don't engage much with babies until 6 months of age because at 6 months, a baby can start to smile. And that's when dads start to get involved with their unique way of loving, which is tickle, play.
And they get mobile. So the play circuits really come online when you're crawling and beginning to walk.
That's right. So moms give nurturing love, dads give playful love, and children need both those forms to develop a full sense of who they are, how to connect with both sexes. And that's where sexual love comes out of those two primary circuits. And when somebody gets that, then they seek that loop. I seek nurture, play, sexual lust, and I keep doing that. That's secure attachment.
So all that woundedness is where all this is born. So when you're beginning to think about, am I struggling? You need some awareness, some language, some context to put your own life into to say, okay, this is where I got what I needed, and this is where I didn't. But Scott, that's really, really hard. Like I talked to a guy last week, and he just started his story. Oh, well, I grew up in a good home, and my mom and dad loved me, and he scored a 13 on the Carnes survey. It was like, I'm like, dude, you got, I didn't tell him this, but I got, dude, you got some issues that we need to talk about, because there's a whole bunch in your story that doesn't line up with the words that you're telling me about your life growing up as a child.
Yeah. And I hear that all the time too. It's like, no, it was a very loving home and you've got disorganized attachment and I don't think you realize what's going on in your family.
Yeah.
So why do we do that? Because as a child, you have two primary needs. You have a need to be attached, which is that connection to your mother and your father. And you also have a need to be authentic. Now, these are fundamental survival needs. Because if you think about this, the way the human being developed is, if I'm not attached, I can't live in the wild until I'm, 14 or 15 years old. So I need my parents to survive. But I also can't live in the wild without being authentic to what my gut is telling me, to what I feel in my body. But if I grow up in a family system where my desires, my gut, my heart, and my emotions are not honored, I will always compromise my authenticity to stay attached.
Yes.
And that compromise develops insecure attachment very early. I'm not allowed. So I'll ask guys, oh, you had a great family. What emotions were not allowed in your family? Oh, I wasn't allowed to be angry. I wasn't allowed to be afraid because Jesus tells us not to fear. What were you allowed? I was allowed to feel shame. I was not allowed to be sad, and I was allowed to be happy. So if you start asking a guy what emotions were not allowed in your family, or what happened when you wanted something and your mom and dad dealt with that want, how was that dealt with? What did you feel?
Well, that brings up a whole new exploration. There's a great line from the movie The Matrix Reloaded, where at the end of the movie, the architect of the machine world said there are levels of survival we are willing to endure. And I think that's a very human statement. Because what you just described is, okay, as long as I can belong to something, I will put up with almost anything and call it good. When the reality is, I don't know what good is, because I'm in a survival mode rather than a growth mode.
Yeah. I think belonging is the fundamental human need.
Yeah.
Right?
We do a lot of shit. We do a lot of shit to belong, man. You and I both know in our own stories what we're willing to give up in order to feel a part.
And I will submerge or push down my other authentic desires just to belong.
Yep.
That's how critical it is. So it brings me back to that experiment that was done, the classic experiment with the little baby monkeys, where they would have the mommy with the nipple stuck through, but on a chicken wire frame. And then they would have another one that had a fur-covered mommy, but no nipple. The babies would stay continually on the fur-covered mommy because of the touch, which is a fundamental communication of connection.
Yep.
They would stay on that and then go over to the nipple, the wire, the chicken mesh to feed, and then go back to the fur mommy. And human beings are no different than that. We will sacrifice a lot to stay connected.
So where in this process of addressing my need for connection, we want to identify how I was hurt and wounded, obviously, to begin the process. But at some point, and I think when I talk with guys, one of the transformational experiences is having an experience of unconditional acceptance and connection with other humans. Is that even on a Zoom call, when I'm sitting with another man and I'm just listening and thank you for that. And I'm reflecting back what I hear, there seems to be a change in their face and their demeanor, because for one of the first times in their life, there's a person that doesn't want anything from them, that just wants to be that fur-covered mommy for them, for them to attach to and to connect to. And what part of the recognition in my own journey that I need that and beginning to receive that, how does that play into the work of addressing my sex addiction?
Well, I would say, asking the question, have I ever been in a relationship where I feel like every part of me is welcome. Every part, even the part that likes to have sex with whatever I like to have sex with, is that part welcome?
Yeah.
And can I be seen with that where I feel shame a lot of times? Can I be seen and be soothed in the relationship so that that other person lets me know, I love you as you are, not the way I want you to be. And so you can understand if you grow up in a relationship like that, where acceptance is conditional, where belonging is conditional, you're going to be eternally seeking a way to belong that may get paired with sexuality very early, so that the way I belong is to have sex, right? And now in my body, I confuse belonging with orgasm. And so I end up seeking that because it feels like belonging, but it's not.
Or maybe the other extreme of that. I connect with independence as orgasm, is that in my own body, I bond with myself. No one else is going to be there for me. So I find an auto-regulating experience of acting out an orgasm that makes me feel like I'm cared for, even though it's a massive substitute for true connection. It works in the moment because when I'm isolated in my bedroom with nobody seeming to care about me, even though they're all around me all the time and they don't pay attention to what I'm looking at on my computer or who I'm chatting with or what I'm doing with my body, I'm dancing around the room naked and playing with my penis at every opportunity, that experience in my own body feels bonding, feels connective with myself. And yet it also leads to very little benefit outside of the neurological hormonal bump in the moment.
Yeah. So the critical thing here, Chris, is what does a guy got to do is if you recognize that you struggle in your sexuality in these ways that we've been talking about, either hypersexuality or hyposexual, oversex or undersex or both, the first thing you need to have is a safe relationship. And by safe, I mean emotionally safe. I mean, you feel like every part of you is welcome, especially the places that you are most ashamed of or that you hate the most.
Yes.
Because until you have an experience with another human being where every part of you is welcome and you can learn to be loved in that state, you can never love yourself.
Right.
And so one way to look at shame is a lack of self-love. I cannot love myself as disgusting as I am. And until you can, you will not be able to change. And you cannot love yourself as you are until somebody else loves you. That is just the way it works.
Yes.
So that's the one thing when you develop this very independent attachment style, which we would call avoidant, right? Avoidant attachment is I don't need other people.
Right.
But you really do. You just don't think you do because nobody was ever there for you. So you had to survive on your own.
Yep. But and anxious is the other side, which is I got to have people. I got to have people. I got to have people. Yeah.
And chaotic is I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Right? I'm a ping pong ball back and forth and back and forth. Yeah.
So no matter what your attachment style is, there is a unique way that's manifesting in how you go about either seeking connection too much or you don't seek it at all. And so the opposite of addiction, that's why we always say the opposite of addiction is connection. The opposite of your childhood trauma is connection. You have to have safe connecting relationships that replicate what was missing growing up.
But Scott, I can't have connection. Nobody is there for me. I've tried to have people in my life that could be my friends, and I end up being too much for them, or they end up running away and not being with me, and I feel lonely all the time. And here I am. I work really hard. I can't tell you the number of guys we talk to that are really successful at work. They're good workers. They're hard laborers. They create some good things. And yet they feel so alone and abandoned. Where is it that a man can go to find connection that's going to be welcoming of all of myself? Because it ain't church, dude. I can just tell you that right now. It's not church.
It's definitely not church. I'll testify to that, brother.
Testify.
I was in
And it's
church
not my family either. It's not, my family is kind of the causing agent in this. And I love them and want to continue to have a relationship with them, but they're not going to help me heal because they were the ones that helped cause the problem in the first place. So where do I go?
Here's the sad truth. If you have insecure attachment, guess what? You probably married a spouse that's got insecure attachment too.
Yeah.
And both of you came into the marriage expecting the other person to be the solution, and now you're disappointed. And
that usual, the chaser and the runner. One of you is the chaser and the other one is the runner, right?
Yep, that's usually the case. So it's not going to be your spouse, it's not going to be your children, and it's not going to be your work buddies because they're work buddies. Here's what I would suggest, and this is why we do what we do, is you need to find a therapist, a counselor, or a coach who can serve as a kind of surrogate attachment figure for you, who can help you learn to regulate your emotions, first and foremost. And here's how you know they're the therapist for you or the coach for you. I feel safe with them.
Yes.
Every part of me is welcome in that relationship.
Yes.
So when I can have a relationship with a therapeutic individual like that, and which is even better if they do group work, and I can be a part of a group of other guys that are coming from this same place of, we are just here to be with you so that you can be known. Then you can actually heal. And out of both the therapeutic relationship and the relationship with the other guys in the group, legitimate friendships start to emerge. A legitimate friendship is a friendship where every part of you is welcome. And you begin to get the developmental needs that you've had all your life. You begin to get them met in those safe relational contexts. That's the only way we change. That's why we say the only way we change is not informationally. It's not by reading a book, although books are good. It's not by going to a seminar. It's not by, it's not even by participating in a group. You don't heal unless you heal relationally and emotionally.
And so that goes back to the brain chemistry pieces the formative brain chemistry pieces where, in my brain stem, in my limbic system, and in my, cortex brain, there's all this stuff gets healed on an appropriate level because I feel safe. I don't have to chase and run. I can just be. I can just sit where I am with this coach or therapist, where I am with this group, is to be the authentic version of me. And it's amazing to watch guys that come in and they're trying to put on a good face and they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but they finally kind of relax and they go, wow, I can just sit here and listen and be me. And what that also does when the presence piece is soaked into your body neurobiologically, interpersonally, then the emotions stop being quite as manic. I stop going from the up, down, the red to the blue, as we say in our groups, from anger and anxiety to shame and sadness, back and forth and back and forth. And I begin to stay a little more in that middle space of, I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling content. I'm feeling safe. I'm feeling like I can receive things from you and I can process things from you. And it's not going to take me to this place of, I really have to do something about this, or this is catastrophic, or I don't even want to be here. I'm going to shut down. And then, as we say to guys, when you go through the process of feeling present in your own body and being able to regulate your emotions, then the behavior mechanism comes online. Because until I address those two parts of my brain and my development, my safety within myself and my emotional self-regulation, the behavior is really not going to change that much because the behavior works. We are struggling with compulsive sexual behavior because it works to regulate my emotions and my feeling of safety. And Absolutely. So that's the process that we're on. It's not about, if you want us to stop your behavior, go see another coach and really go try out every single program, and none of them are going to work. Because the behavior may stop on some level, but you'll find it somewhere else, or you'll find it somewhere else. The behavior is merely symptomatic of the emotional and the basic embodied feeling of safety that you're seeking.
Yeah. So you were wounded in relationship.
Yep.
You can only heal in relationship.
Yep.
And that's a big challenge for those of us that were wounded in relationship, because I have to go back to the source of my harm, another human being, and I have to trust that they will be there for me. And here's the real gist of it, Chris. They will fail you.
Yes.
I tell guys this all the time.
Yes.
Please do not put me on a pedestal and see me as this ideal father figure or this ideal coach or this ideal therapist. I am not that. I will sorely dash your hopes. But here's what I will do. When I miss you, I will reattune to you once I become aware of it. If you and here's the strength of a therapeutic relationship. You can say to that guy, I think you're full of shit, Chris. And instead of you coming back to me and going, hey, I'm the expert here, buddy. You should be listening to me. I've had all this training.
You can't talk to me like that.
Yeah. You came to me for help. What are you talking about? Or you go to the other extreme, which is, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but man, I can see I really blew it. And now you start beating up on yourself in my presence. Instead, you get curious and you go, hey, I'm really curious, Scott. What made you feel so angry with that statement?
Yeah.
Like, I'd like to know. Because most guys have never been in a relationship where somebody's been curious about what just happened that disconnected us.
Yep.
And to be able to have that ability to reconnect. So even good enough parenting in the attachment literature, good enough parenting doesn't mean you get it right all the time. In fact, it means you get it right only 30% of the time.
Yeah.
So the other
average.
Right. Good enough parents blow it 70% of the time. That's highly encouraging, right?
Yes.
But here's what good enough parenting does do that's different than other parenting that can be harmful. Good enough parenting, when they blow it, when they miss you, they come back and they reattune with you.
Yep.
So they're like, hey, Chris, I saw when you came home from school and I asked you how was school and you said something. I realized I wasn't really paying attention when you responded to me, and I heard a sadness in your voice. I just want to come back and say, I'm sorry I wasn't noticing you, buddy. And I'm looking you in the face, and my tone of voice communicates care and love, and I'm giving you my eyes, and my body posture is, could I give you a hug? Man, that's what's healing.
That's so kind.
And that's what we need, because it also teaches us that even when things go wrong in relationship, they will be repaired. Yep. I'll be okay.
Yep. And I want to just stress this, Scott. I think a lot of times it's really, especially people who have struggled with insecure attachment or have felt emotionally dysregulated, is they're looking for someone to save them. They're looking for a parent to come back and make everything okay. The hard truth about this journey is that no one is coming to save you. But what we can do is show you the way. We know from our own journeys, and we know from the many men that we've walked through, the basic principles and the basic, I like to call them trail markers because I'm a big hiker, the trail markers of how to get where you want to go. But you're the hero of your journey. I'm not a hero. Scott, you're not a hero. I'm the hero of my journey. I'm the hero in my family, because it's my responsibility to show up and take care of the people that I love. I just had 2 people texting me while we were making this recording that I get to call after this because I love them and I want to be with them. But I can do that because I've gone on the journey to be able to be connected in a healthy way with my emotions. And I've asked people before me to guide me and show me the way. And part of that on this journey together that we're on is we've learned to walk together in this journey. We support each other. So there's times when I'm weak and you're strong for me. There's times when you're weak and I'm strong for you, and we lift one another up. And that's the secure attachment piece that we've been able to remake, so that we don't need to run to sexuality to feel okay in my body.
So the key here then is, depending on what my attachment style is, if I'm anxious in my attachment style, I need to learn to rely more on myself and stop being so dependent on other people for my sense of myself.
Yep.
If I'm avoidant, I need to stop relying only on myself and learn to be more interdependent with other people. If I'm chaotic, I'm going to need to learn that as well for both styles. But the gist of it here is we want to strive for interdependency, not dependency and not avoidance. Right. And that's what's going to be healing. And that means when I get to that place of relational security with others, where there's a mutuality and an interdependence, I can do it. I can regulate myself when I need to. And when I get dysregulated, I'm outside my window of tolerance, I can come to you and get some help, and vice versa. And that's what allows me to flourish and grow as a human being, holding those things, both my attachment and my individuation, being my own person, my authentic self, holding those in tension at all times and moving forward, not going to one extreme or the other. And this sounds like I'm thinking right now, guys are listening to this or watching this video going, why you're not talking about sexual addiction at all? No, we actually are. We're talking about all addictions right now because all addictions form out of the lack of getting this growing up.
We're talking about healthy human experience. And that is what the goal is. If I don't have healthy human experience, I'm going to run to something to feel like a person, to feel like I'm connected, to feel like I'm loved. But I love that analogy, that tension that we hold, because in that tension is where the truth lies, and it's where growth can happen, and it's where we can take another step. And that's all we're asking you guys to do today, is take one more step into either self-awareness or connection about where you're struggling and who can help you, where you can begin to connect in a way that really brings you the life that you want. We want you to live a full, rich life just like you want, not like we want you to. We want your life to be full, because man, if it was filled with a bunch of Chris's and Scotts, it'd be freaking boring. I'd be so annoyed everywhere I went. I'm so glad that each man has his unique giftedness and goodness to bring to this world, and we want that to grow and develop as it always should have.
And let me say this: the steps for healing trauma, which is what we're really talking about. We're talking about healing complex trauma. Yep. Sexual addiction comes out. Sexual struggles come out of complex trauma. So if you want to heal it, we've known how to heal it for 30 years. These are the 3 steps. 1, you begin to name and feel emotions in your body. You do that in the context with another relationship with a human being who can help you name those emotions and be with you in them. Number 2, you begin to name and feel the harm that has occurred to you growing up in your core relationships.
And grieve it for sure.
And grieve it and feel the emotions around it. And the 3rd step is you begin to rename yourself. You begin to reimagine who you can be, living that life of both the tension of being a person with your own authentic needs and wants and desires, and connected to others. And that's going to require some guys that can help you reimagine who you are and walk you through all 3 of those steps. Here's the problem with most modern therapy. Most modern therapists are not trained to do that. They're trained to do only cognitive behavioral therapy, think differently, and you'll change your life. And for those of us with complex trauma, which is everybody struggling with any addiction, none of that really works. It's just symptom management. What we're talking about, this deep, relational, affect regulating, attachment repairing, connectedness, that's what changes us. So,
well, guys, if you want to have sexuality that works, we would encourage you to take care of yourself. And you can do that by checking out some of the assessments below, by booking a call with us, by even coming to one of our events. We've got some exciting events planned in Nashville in April and in Colorado in July. It's going to go on a big adventure together. So we look forward to sharing more with you about that. You can go to wegotballspod.com to find out about our upcoming events, and successfulmen.com to talk with us one-on-one, because we want to continue to help you feel like a man right here on We Got Balls.
And you do too.
See you soon, guys.